counselors Kevin Mesa and Paulo Benag about the new learning and professional pathways, or LPPs. The second part will be a Q&A by our amazing panelists, Peter Green, Caitlin Evie, Dev Bill, and we have a few prepared questions, but if you have any specific questions through the event, please send them to Elise in the chat. Thank you.
So with that, Kevin, take it away for the presentation.
Great, thank you. Thank you for all of you coming here. This is a great group. I want to thank all of you in the visual performing arts for everything I have on, my glasses, my shirt, you know, where I spend my money in concerts, art museums. So all my money goes to you to support you. That's the kind of person I am, right? So each LPP, Learning Professional Pathways, I'll give a little more description in a little bit, is a way to channel your thoughts and energies and connect them with the labor markets and interviews and careers, and try to match your interests and talents with the right career for you, right? Pulling it together. Usually visual performing arts students know who they are. They usually identify themselves. And so this is a pretty tight group. I'm going to go through the formal presentation here. So I'm going to do a shared screen. And let's see here. And presents. All right, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to co-present with Paulo here. He's another counselor. He was formerly really involved on campus as a student in the student government, and then now he's really involved as a counselor. So we've had him here for a long time, and so he knows the campus really well. Hey Paulo. So why are we here? It's how to choose a major based off your interests and strengths using a guided pathways approach. We're also going to learn about what LPPs are. They're a new development in higher education. It's meant to simplify the college process. And you're also going to learn directly from professors on how to turn your interests and skills, how to develop your skills and interests in their particular fields. Well, the main thing I want to talk about is there's this researcher named Donald Clifton, and his thing was soar with your strengths and manage your weaknesses. Luckily, I came upon his work when I was in college and really started to take that to heart, and I use that in counseling. You have some natural gifts and talents that you've been developing throughout your life. You may not have really realized it, but the decisions that you've made brought you to this level. You're probably drawn, in this case, to the arts, obviously. Now this is a good one for the arts area, because I do a lot of traveling. Each career choice we have has benefits, right? Fringe benefits. For me, it's travel. So in education, I'm a counselor here, and I worked here for actually 20 years. This is going to be my 20-year anniversary in December. But we get to travel. Well, we get time off in the summer, so I get to travel a lot. So when I'm traveling, my work never leaves me because my work doesn't feel like work. It's part of me. So when I visit museums and architecture around the world, I think about who built these places, who designed them, for what purpose, and all these things. And so every generation of history has artists, politicians, educators, musicians, athletes, builders. Everyone has a role in society to make it function. And that's for you all to identify where your fit is, where you can contribute to society. And ideally, it's based off your strengths and your interests. So you enjoy what you do. It's an expression of yourself. And that's why we're here, to make sure you match what those are about. I love what I do, and I know all the people here love what they do as well. So our mission is to make sure that you line up with a great career for you. There's actually 1,200 majors in the United States that you can choose. So it's part of it's specifying which angle you're going to go. Again, I keep mentioning this, identify your interests and talents, then keep developing those skills that enhance you. In the art world, though, you want to push yourself, right? Maybe you're not naturally, quote unquote, talented in a certain area, but you take some extra classes. You want to see the world in different landscapes, different viewpoints, right? It's growth. Sometimes it's not going to feel as natural, but you get a different views. Now, the further you go in education, the more money you make. And it's not about money, but that's part of this, right? We have to have survival, right? I believe for me, I grew up low income, so it was important to have financial stability. I wasn't really thinking about being super wealthy or anything like that, but ideally be able to provide for my family. A high school graduate on average earns about $48,000 a year. That's not a starting salary. That's an average of people 25 years and over. That's about what they make. It's a little more in California, but those with an associate's degree make more than those with a high school diploma. And that's at about 56,000, give or take. A bachelor's degree close to 80,000. As you can see, your training, as that goes up, your income goes up because it's hard to replace you. The more skills that you have, you're a bigger asset to that company, corporation, foundation, whatever that you're working on, right? And then in the art field, a lot of times you have a lot of projects that you work on. So your name in those fields is really important to build. And what you learn in the classroom, even if it's, well, obviously your art skills, but public speaking class or economics or accounting, all these things add to what you're doing as an artist, because sometimes you have to manage all these together. Or you decide, I can't do that. And then maybe you pay somebody to support your art, right? To handle the business part. These are all these things that kind of go into in the world of arts when I've worked with artists. Will you make money in your major? That's a big question for all LPPs. Well, the research shows that right out of college, a computer science or engineering major definitely makes more money, without a doubt. But over time, an art major, a history major, philosophy major can make more than an average engineer. It's what you do with your talents and skills over time in the job market. It's personal decisions. Sometimes it's luck. You know, it's your skill that lines up with that time in history. But don't be discouraged if you see starting salaries low in certain areas. It does catch up. I always feel talent rises, like this light that almost hit me. So yeah, so the light is rising there. Be in tune with your strengths and confident in that, and networking, particularly in the art fields. These are some of the skills just generally, not necessarily just for arts, but anything. These are the top skills employers look for: problem solving skills, working in a team, work ethic, analytical skills, writing skills, leadership, and so on. A lot of these projects you're going to work on, even though you're an artist, you're going to work with other people. And if you're easier to work with, then they're going to bring you on to projects. Friends of mine in the entertainment industry, they know certain friends and they keep bringing them back for projects. They know they're talented and easy to work with. So those are the things that you learn to work on when you're here. Being involved in leadership on campus. Go ahead, Paulo. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, as a career counselor or even as an academic counselor, we see so many students. We're so used to students coming in saying like, oh, I want to go to UCLA. They come in with like that college already kind of set in stone, or they have that major set in stone, where they just want to say, you know, I want to major in biology and that's it. Or I'm Filipino, so obviously I'm going to major in nursing, right? And that's great. But at the Career Center, we really like to flip that narrative and have that conversation with students just to make sure that their career journey or their major exploration is based on, or have a solid foundation on, like their values, their unique interests, their talents, and like this slide is showing, their transferable skills. Right before this presentation, I was reviewing a student's resume. He or she might be on this presentation actually, but he was talking about, he's a film major, and you know, he was saying include some of the stuff in my resume that has nothing to do with film. But even if like that career or that job that he had before has nothing to specifically to do with career, there's still some aspects and there's still some transferable skills that he could definitely put in his resume, right? And that's kind of like at the Career Center, definitely what we want to highlight, like working with people, just having great leadership skills, have verbal communication skills, problem solving skills, are all, again, maybe not necessarily tied to film, you know, like technical skills, but employable skills, definitely.
And learning the culture of your field. If you go to a presentation that geared towards professional world and business, you might get good advice for that, but the art world's different, right? How people relate, how they present themselves and everything. So it's learning the culture within your field, which is really important. That's why, you know, you can use our Career Center to get advice there, but you also want to have your professors, people in the field to say, hey, is this normal? How creative can I be with this? Or am I just pushing the limits here? But sometimes in the art world, you push the limits, you set a new trend and you stand out. So there's all those things that you want to get advice. Not for me. I appreciate the arts, but I'm not in that world, right? So that's why it's really, you need to find some mentors in whatever, whether it's music or design or whatever that you're interested in. Now I'm gonna hand it over to Paulo as this is a starting point and compass. There's certain directions we're heading. Go for it, Paulo.
Right, and thanks for the shout out at the Career Center, because at the Career Center, we do have a few assessments that we conduct with students. One of them is the strong interest inventory. We'll talk about multiple intelligence theory, or the Holland's Code, where again, we assess students' personality, we assess their interest, and that, validate the majors that they've already chosen, or maybe lead them into a different path that might speak more to, again, what they're more interested in. So talking about the Holland's Code, I'm sure some of us might have heard of this before. It pretty much classified hundreds, thousands of jobs into 6 different categories. The idea behind it is that the job or career that students pursue should at least fall under their interests, right? So again, right, I'm gonna pull my Filipino card. Like, all Filipinos love singing and karaoke. I do not. I I am tone deaf.
You got to hand over your Filipino card, right? Hand it over.
I'll help you
not
with
a nurse
that,
and you don't sing, right?
all right,
I'll
Dr.
help you with that.
I have been thinking of doing like vocal coaching, because it's horrible. Like, people leave parties when I start singing.
Everybody can sing.
Okay, well, I don't know. My dad is a singer. Like, he was in a band, but again, it's just not an interest maybe. But I was an English major, right? So writing, poetry, creative writing is one of my artistic talents. But within the 6 categories, right, you definitely would want to pursue a career that at least have a little bit of your talent. It doesn't necessarily have to be the main interest, but at least, you go to work every day, 8 to 9 hours a day, and you at least want to do something that's interesting to you. So for example, Kevin, do you mind going to the other slide? Yeah, so for example, for those students who have like a high interest in artistic careers, those are typically students who have innovative, intuitional abilities. Artistic students don't usually like structured situations, because they like to have spaces where their creativity and imagination can bloom, right? Or where they can express their ideas, or where their self-expression can shine. But I've also seen students who kind of more into the enterprising, right? Talking about like business. So sometimes there's some, whenever I do some of my career panels and I invite artists, one of my question is, what's a class, or what could you have done differently in college? And one of the most of their answers is, I wish I've taken a business class, right? And I feel like that makes sense, because again, they have all these singing skills, they have this artistic skills, but again, maybe taking a business class would help them make that more marketable, right? So again, having interest in not just one but multiple areas is definitely beneficial for students, and when they're looking for their career, or narrowing down on their major. So these are the we like to hone in at the Career Center.
Yeah, it gives you some structure to help make decisions. We have something called the Career Coach. It's a free assessment you can take through the Career Center, and again, it guides a discussion. How do you take what your artistic ability is and create maybe something you can live off of, and all that other stuff. So it's merging kind of. I think a lot of artists that I know, again, are independent contractors. They create their own things, so they have to manage that, and those are skills. I would say I have a certain set of skills. I would say I can't dance. I was saying another. So like I can move a little, but I got rhythm. I am Latino, right? I do have that. But if it's step and moving back and forth, like I get lost, and I have a PhD, right? But I'm always the slowest in the class. So I basically I have a PhD. I do. Everybody, but I'm always stepping on toes and everything like that. I get frustrated, but I'm okay, right? And that's the thing, but I wouldn't have known that unless I took classes to experiment, right? And then that goes back to strengths. I know I'm not going to win a competition unless it's kind of just more like a mocking competition, but otherwise, but experiment with everything is what I'm saying, and be comfortable failing, right? That's another part too. Fail enough, you kind of like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to head a different route. Speaking of which, there's something called intelligences. There is some in the academic world, there's research on this that is inconclusive. So let's not necessarily call them intelligence. Let's just call them skills, things that you've developed, which you're good at, right? So let's not get too much into the psych research behind it. But we all kind of know some of us are really good with people, interpersonal skills. Sometimes some of us are really intrapersonal, reflective. A lot of artists are. They're able to communicate through their art, whatever the medium. Some of us are logic smart, mathematical, not me. Music smart. In college, I was really big fan of Pink Floyd, and I was like, wow, to play the piano, let it all out, like amazing. What a stress reduction. So I took piano 1, I enjoyed it, but piano 2 stressed me out. How is this hand doing something different than this, right? So I pushed myself a bit. I enjoyed it. I appreciate the arts more because of it. All right, but start to identify what your natural talents are. Now you can improve all this. Now I make these jokes. If I worked really hard, I can learn piano without a doubt. I could learn how to dance. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying some of these things come more naturally to us. And I really push that idea. I know I keep saying that, but experiment. Picture smart is usually the visual performing arts. You see the world in a different way. And then music smart, of course. And we talked about that. Nature smart is looking at patterns in nature, which a lot of artists see. I go out, I see a bush, I see a tree. I don't see all the intricacies of what and how to identify them. And if you came in, I would draw you a nice stick figure of the tree without much details, but artists see these things that we don't see. And that's what, what makes people's brains work differently. We're all gifted in different areas in development. So these are other like the smarts we talked about, I was talking about in the other slide. Now I want to talk about learning professional pathways, what this is about. So the idea is to guide you all in a certain path. And within that, we can have more meaningful conversations. I guess that's the idea here. Before, it was just so isolated. Pick your major, good luck. There's 1,200 majors to choose from in the United States. This is a way to have a meaningful conversation in the types of people who find these things interesting, and the types of people who are developing these skills. So learning professional pathways group majors by common subjects, careers, and coursework. We have 8 different LPPs, and we have different presentations every night. And one of them is for undecided students, that's personal exploration. But we want to help you complete your degrees, whether it's certificate, a degree, transfer. We want you not just to leave with that piece of paper. We want to make sure you develop your skills, make sure you're marketable, make sure you know the direction you're going. Because if you know where you're headed, even though that might change down the road, you can build that towards that direction. Paulo.
Yeah, I feel like LPPs actually help students become more well-rounded, because even though they have a major in sight and they're taking all the right classes, they're still able to explore other areas of interest. And that's kind of what goes back to what Kevin has said, they're able to explore other areas and not be scared of it. So for example, these are the 8 LPPs that we have at Glendale: language and comm, visual and performing arts, industrial technology and aviation, business, entrepreneurship, management, health, public safety and wellness, people, power and perspective, personal exploration is kind of like the, for students who might be undecided, and then STEM.
Let's just go into the visual performing arts. Want to take care of that? Yeah.
So yeah, I was just gonna read off this because I feel like this really embodies what visual and performing arts do. So are you interested in artistic expression and developing a clear creative voice? Do you see yourself as an artist, creative content producer?
I'm interpreting it, so if you could not talk that fast.
Sorry.
Sorry. That's okay.
We're running out of time, so I was like, creative content producer, technical expert, skilled performer, or storyteller. Do you want to work with creative people in a design firm, museum, or film studio? Visual and performing arts pathway will prepare you for a career in the arts where you can express your artistic focus through visual art, animation, ceramics, dance, film, and television, gallery studies, graphic design, music, photography, theater, and new media. This pathway builds a mastery of skills you can use in careers throughout and beyond LA, which is creative economy in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, these are some of the ones we have at Glendale. Of course, we don't have all the transfer ones, all the degrees you can get when you leave Glendale, but this is what you can focus while you're here. And there's a wide range over here. And I do say dabble. find what you're going to do, but also mix and match, right? Again, I really think it's important, particularly for this field, to generate all the creative pieces of your brain. That's maybe contradicted by our professors here today, right? We never know. We're having this conversation like, no, Kevin, you're wrong, right? And that's okay. We're having this discussion with everybody to understand how to make you a better, a more informed student. Okay, so thank you for your time on our piece of this, and I will hand it over to our facilitators.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I personally love hearing that panel, like no matter that presentation, no matter how many times I've heard it. I always find something really interesting about it. So we're gonna move on to our faculty Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me in the chat. I'm going to pass it over to the faculty members to introduce themselves, starting with Professor Green.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Green. I'm the chair of Visual and Performing Arts. I've been at GCC since 1999. I can't believe it. It's been so long. It doesn't seem like that long. I am originally from Newfoundland, from Canada. I did my undergrad in Newfoundland and then decided I wanted to continue with a master's degree. I ended up going to USC, so I got my master's and then continued for a doctorate in piano performance at USC with a minor in choral music. So there you go.
Thank you so much. Professor Deal?
Hello, so I'm Deb Deal, and I'm kind of happy to be able to say that I didn't have a clear pathway in my education. I started out with a BA in psychology as an undergrad psychology person and thought I was going to go on and get a doctorate in psychology. I went out and worked in the field for a while and realized I really was an artist. So I started taking film classes and I got a portfolio, and then I got an MFA from Northwestern University in Chicago in film, television, and radio arts. And then I've started teaching, and I've taught many places over the last 20 years. One of them was a not-for-profit organization I started in Chicago with a bunch of other artists and educators back in the 1990s. And that was for letting young people from all over the city of Chicago have a voice, because at the time there was no YouTube, and give them tools to make their own television shows that would sometimes go on to local public television access stations or the public TV channel that was there. So I've always been really interested in helping other people develop their artistic voice. And my own artwork is it's moved very much into experimental video. And I mostly now don't do as much narrative or documentary work. It's more things that show in galleries. So I'm kind of all over the place, but just for some of you guys to know that it wasn't a clear path. And like Kevin, I came from a family that was really financially insecure. So there were a lot of years where all I wanted to do was try to just make a buck. And then I realized I wasn't going to go in that one direction. That wasn't the most important thing. So I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. What about Professor Ebby?
Hi, my name is Caitlin Eby. I'm a new professor here at Glendale. I started in February of this year. So I had like 3 beautiful weeks with people on campus, and then we did this massive pivot. I'm the head of design and tech for the theater program here at GCC. I am originally from Michigan, where I got my BA in theater arts from Western Michigan University. I took the long way through undergrad for a variety of reasons, and eventually decided to go right into grad school. And being from the Midwest, I knew I wanted to go to one of the coasts to get to expand my world and diversify and see more of what the world was like. So I decided to use grad school as an opportunity to move here to LA, where I went to Cal State Long Beach. And while I was there, I started designing around LA, doing lighting designs for museums and dance companies, and working in themed entertainment and designing architectural lighting design for places like Google and Warner Brothers and stuff like that. And sorry, that's my cat. A year or so, after grad school, I thought I wanted to get away from academia, and then I started to recognize the void of fulfillment and made my way into education and teaching here at Glendale.
You all have such amazing stories. Thank you so much for sharing. Our next question is for Professor Green. I guess Professor or Dr. Green, which do you prefer?
Either is fine.
Okay, so the next question is for you. Kevin Meza talked about the Holland codes and like the interests of students. My question is, what are the interests of students who enter the Visual and Performing Arts LPP and music major?
What are the interests?
Yes, so what are the interests of students?
You mean the different departments, or what exactly do you mean, Elise?
So I guess when we formulated this question, it was very much about the LPP as a whole. So the visual and performing arts. Kevin talked a lot about how people who are more artistic in nature kind of go into this pathway in their profession.
Right.
So in your experience, what are their interests and maybe what are their goals would be a better way to phrase it.
A lot of students come and they want to do, like, for instance, music, but they've never ever done it before. They've never performed, they've never taken a piano lesson, and they come and they take piano class or they take a voice class or something, and they find out that they're great at it, or they find out that they're not so great at it, and they just enjoy it. And that's okay too. I mean, everybody needs to have a little bit of music education so they can appreciate not everybody's going to be a performer. And it's the same way in all of the arts. A lot of our students come and they want to take a studio arts class, and some of them are really talented and some of them have to work more hard at it, Is that kind of answering your question?
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if any of the other faculty members here tonight have anything to add to that.
Jump in.
I would say that one thing that's really common in terms of people who come into our program is that they really want to express themselves. They feel a real desire to bring something inside of them out into the world and share it with other people, whether it's stories, whether it's imagery. In the other parts of our division, certainly they want to reveal it, whether it's ceramics or painting or whatever. There's this real desire to express. And sometimes, like, it's great because they can move around in the division and learn and take the skills that they've learned in one area and apply them to another area. And that just builds even more strength for whichever area they lock down into, I would say.
Thank you for that response. I'm going to pass to Valeria for the next question.
Okay, Professor Devdale, this question is for you, and it's, what skills will you expect an individual in this LPP to develop by the time they graduate?
For the whole entire division, like for the whole pathway, yeah.
For the pathway or for your area specifically? So I know that.
Well, I think that we could probably, Dr. Green and Caitlin and I would probably agree that on some of these for sure. By the time people leave, they're going to have the ability to deconstruct something, to look at a piece of art or hear a piece of music or look at a theatrical design or whatever, and be able to understand the elements that go into making it successful or not. So they'll be able to understand how it's constructed, but then also they'll be able to deconstruct it. They'll be able to look at something and say, that's not working because of this or that, or it is working because of these elements that fit with it. So we use the term critical thinking a lot, but that deconstruction and construction that we're always doing with students lends itself to critical thinking within our wider area. I think that's one. And then technical skills, they're going to learn technical skills, whether it's piano or whether it's 3-point lighting design, or whether it's cinematography skills for framing camera and understanding file formats and camera. It's going to be, that. And then I think probably the last thing I would say is all of us are going to help students develop their own artistic voice and help them figure out, like, what are the things that they care about aesthetically, and how is it going to influence the way that they make things.
Thank you so much. That was a really great. I don't know if anybody had anything else to add, but I think that was really insightful about this LPP in general. So
I was thinking about the performing arts. Sorry, Liz, I just have this little
Go ahead,
story.
Kevin.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. I was in, I was traveling and I went to Mozart's birthplace, and I was in there in awe. I saw little Mozart. He was little. He was just this little kid, 4 years old, little Mozart. And I was looking around, and a couple things kind of I found fascinating. One is there was a drawing of his son. His son's ear was slightly deformed. He had an interesting ear development. So I was never read that anywhere else or seen it, but it was like he listens to music. That's why maybe part of it, he would listen to music different. He heard things different. So that was one. But two, I was thinking, wow. And the reason we have Mozart is because he had a piano. If Mozart didn't have a piano, we wouldn't have the music and plus the family to support him at that point, right? So I think in the community colleges, we could provide that piano for maybe a little later in life for some of our people. Peter?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We have practice rooms at the college now. Obviously, you can't use them now. And right now we're loaning out small little keyboards to anybody that's interested in taking a piano class. But you're right, Kevin. I mean, maybe we wouldn't know who Mozart is if he didn't have a piano. Absolutely.
Yeah, and a piano, paintbrush, different arts, right? So just access to this as a young person, but now we have it. We can catch up as our students and expose them to this thing, right?
And I
so
think I think it's so important. I mean, lots of students know, okay, I think I want to do business or I want to do whatever, and they don't test anything else out. And I think it's so important, and especially in the community college, they get a chance to try a media class, try a theater class, try a music class, and they might not have gotten that in high school. And I think it's very important to have help to have a well-rounded education.
Yeah, I've read that there's with some fast track kinds of degrees now, there's very little room to experiment outside. Like they get you through, you take the basic stuff and then you're zooming right through and there's no way to go experiment. And that breaks my heart because there's so many people where none of us are one thing. And I think the arts are good for everybody. So.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that about theater especially, because you may be lucky enough to have like an aunt or someone who has a piano, but to learn lighting design, you really can't do that without access to a theater. Same with scenic design, you can sort of do it in theory, but you don't really get hooked to it the way you do when you see your creations on the stage. And so that can be a significant barrier. And we're lucky to have a great theater here at Glendale. And I have found, because in my program, acting gets a lot of attention in general. And people don't realize how rewarding the technical aspects can be until they take one of the required classes, and then that leads to maybe an elective, and then before they know it, they're pursuing their technical theater certificate because they're only 1 or 2 classes away, and because it can be very rewarding hands-on work that does require a whole lighting rig or a scene shop to help facilitate, but our classes can help do that.
Yeah, we had baby Mozart and now we have baby Yoda, right? So expressed in, movies and entertainment, right? So along those lines.
Kevin, that was such a great segue to our next question. Thank you. Clearly you knew what question was coming next. So GCC, this is for anybody, GCC, like all colleges, offers resources to help students. So did you, when you were in college, utilize any resources such as tutoring, financial aid, student programs, etc., to help you get through school?
I'll answer that. Yeah, I utilized, mainly I utilized writing for grants and awards to help enrich my educational experience and put me on my career path. A lot of the arts is experiencing art. And I also came from a low income family, first generation college student in the Midwest. And so I didn't have a lot of access to arts beyond the Midwest. So I wrote grants to basically send me to New York to take master classes. And while I was there, I would see every single show I could, get student rush tickets, wait outside the theater, and just try and experience and soak up as much as possible. And that really inspired me. So when I went back to college, back to my college the following semester, I could write more grants to help get performances funded that I was really passionate about and had done research on. In my first year, I was awarded a scholarship, and part of that scholarship mandate was that I had to see a career counselor for the first semester. And I, in hindsight, really wish that I had continued that. I think I was just sort of like very young and brazen. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need a counselor. And now in hindsight, I was like, wow, it would have been really great to have someone to talk to, because I stopped undergrad halfway through because I couldn't afford it anymore. And so I had to go and work, and I was away from school. All my friends graduated and left. And maybe had I been seeing a counselor, they could have guided me and maybe prevented that, or helped me get back quicker, or encouraged me to diversify a little bit instead of focusing so much on theater. Because I wish I had taken a dance class or learned to read music in that time. And having an outside perspective, almost like how important therapy can be, seeing a counselor throughout my college career would have helped me in the long run, I think.
Yeah, I'll just
thanks for the plug. We'll give you commission later on. Yeah.
Oh, I plug you guys really hard because the counseling team at GCC is fantastic. Because at my small school that I went to for undergrad, I went in the 1980s. I finished my school during a period of time where everything was about people getting business degrees. And so when I went to talk to the counselor and they asked me what I liked and what I was doing, all my internships were with not-for-profits in New York City, and I was doing stuff like that. And they had no guidance for me. They're like, well, if you don't want to go work for Honeywell, we really can't help you. And there were only 2 guidance counselors, but it was like, oh, if you're not on the business career track, we really can't offer you very much. So so by the way, you guys, I think that like the learning pathways and stuff are terrific. I just wanted to tag on to Caitlin. I've benefited also from financial help from my school. The financial counselors were actually more helpful. I know they helped a lot of my friends who came from lower income families as well with they helped find grants and scholarships and stuff, or we could write for them. They'd help us sort of find them. But also I took advantage of the counseling department for like mental health, because some really bad things happened in my family while I was in school. And if I hadn't had those people, I would have dropped out. And one really awesome professor who I was close to and kept me going. And so I think like utilizing the community around you, the departments are great. And then if you have individual people that you really connect with, using them and having them help you is also really great.
I'm really glad you mentioned the mental health counseling, because on our campus, it's free for students. A lot of students are like, why am I paying a health fee? There's no one there. Actually, there's support people through the health center, therapists that can work with you. I'm an academic counselor. I can go to a certain level of counseling in terms of therapy, but there's a stop at a certain point. So there's resources on campus. It's free. It's best to go before things kind of get out of control. So early, start the process of help seeking behavior. That's a really good and important tip for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kevin. So this next question is for Peter Green. Professor, this is another, sorry. What habits should students develop in order to be successful in your area of study?
That's a good question. I always am talking to music students about this. Do you want me to just talk about music or all of visual and performing arts? Doesn't matter. I'll start with music, and then if Caitlin or Deb want to join in, they can. So, when I was going to school, a pianist, we would lock ourselves into a practice room for 6 hours a day and not talk to anybody else. And I feel like I'm lucky because I had lots of friends when I was going to school and stuff, but I see people that are going through now, and they're, you absolutely need to practice. You need to get your musical skills up. But there's a lot of like people that want to become instructors, or or they come to GCC and they want to teach. and they just don't have any people skills. And I think it's so important, especially, you know, if you want to be a teacher or anything else, to have people skills. So I think that's really important. Um, like I said, you need to, in music, you need to have your theory, you need to have your history, but you need to also have whatever your major instrument is. But I also wish, you know, I studied piano and I did a minor in choral conducting, and we talked about how, you know, they put you on a path and you have to take these classes and take these classes. Well, I never got to take any classes in vocal training, and I teach choirs. So if I had my time back, I would have loved to take in classes like that. I would love to take a dance class like Kevin. I talk about 2 left feet. I try to do the one at the gym, the body combat, and it's awful. It's awful. But maybe if I took a dance class when I was younger, I'd be better at it now. I don't know. I would have liked.
Just keep saying, I'll have a doctorate. I'm a PhD. Yeah, just keep saying that the whole time. Yeah, doctorate.
Right? I would have loved to take a media class. I would have loved to take a theater class. So, you know, if I had my time back, I would have loved to been able to test a few other things. But like I said, you've got to, the biggest thing is you've got to have your discipline in music, because you can't just practice Tuesday and then on Saturday and expect to get better. You have to do it every single day. You have to set aside time in your schedule. This is when I'm going to practice piano, or this is when I'm going to practice my oboe, or whatever it is. And in most of visual and performing arts, you've got to spend a lot of time practicing if you want to get your skills better, because the technical skills have to come. Then you can work on the emotional skills and the other skills.
We actually just got a question in the chat from a student. To Professor Deb, what are some tips or things students can do in order to be successful within the media department?
Well, Peter started off with like connecting with people and saying practice. So I think Caitlin's going to probably say similar thing too. Like there's the technical things that you have to practice. So like Renee, who's here in this meeting, is in one of my classes, and there's a constant demand for the students to keep showing us that they're developing their technical skills, and that it's not quite like a math class, but really if you just don't do that and you don't keep practicing it, you can't keep up and you can't develop them. They can't grow. There's some students sometimes who they either get behind for something happen and they get behind, or they just don't take it very seriously and they think they're going to catch up really fast at the end. It just doesn't work that way. So like practice is part of it, and practicing the technical skills. People skills, really, really important. And it sounds like there's a lot of people who come into at least our department, and I think because they have ideas that they're going to make a movie, and a lot of people who want to be directors or be really in charge, they're thinking, I will be in charge and I will tell people how it's going to happen. That is not the way it works. And most people who function that way, like we all hear about them in the film industry, like, oh, have you ever heard of that temper tantrum so-and-so through? And there's a YouTube clip of it. Those people don't usually last that long. They don't. And in fact, when I've had people come in from the industry to talk in the past about, what are some of the tips for getting jobs and moving, like Kevin mentioned this before, his friends in the industry, they take each other with them job to job. You don't necessarily get one job and stay at Sony all your life or at Warner Brothers. It's not like that. It moves around and shifts depending on the project. So if you're a brat, it doesn't really matter how technically smart you are or how creative you are. People do not want to work with you and they will not take you. And so when I've had somebody from LA Film County Film Commission come in and talk to classes, that's one of the things she said is like, here's the deal. You have to be creative. You have to have technical skills, and you have to be able to get along with people, negotiate with them, communicate with them, not be demanding and bratty, because you can have those, you're competing with tons of other people who have the technical skills and the creative skills. So what's going to put you over the top is being somebody who's super awesome. So like starting to learn your soft skills is really, really important. So technical and then soft skills. And then And then being serious. I mean, like Renee's in my classes, and he knows, like by the way, Renee's a really serious student, so I'm really glad he's here. But there are some students who think it's like they think that media classes or art classes are going to be easy, and they take them as kind of a joke, and then they realize like halfway through the semester, man, this is kind of a heavy workload. It's kind of demanding. I have to keep up with it, and it's hard. So dedication, like keep at it, and try to keep growing your skills. So I'm sorry if that was long-winded, but I'm really huge on the soft skills. I've watched young people I worked with at CSUN who are now running parts of organizations. They're directing departments at these big places, and part of it was they were smart, they did their work, and they learned how to deal with other people really nicely.
Right. We don't learn that in school, and you know, really we should.
And there's that myth about like that, you know, the most creative people are going to just sort of like rise to the top, and they're going to, you know, be the bomb. And you know, that's
the diva,
actually,
you can do whatever you want and get away with it.
And get away with it. Yeah. So we try to put in our department, we try to put that to bed kind of fast.
Yeah, the technical really feeds the creative, and vice versa in all of arts, I think. But there's, you know, so many things like Deb and Peter are saying about the soft skills, about collaborating, and collaboration with directors in the theater is really important. And because, you know, the old school notions of the director is God and whatever the director says happens is sort of out the door. We work more as a cohesive unit and a team, a true design team with one another. But it also doesn't mean as the designer, I get to do whatever I want. You have to be open and collaborative with people. And then I would say time management is a huge one, because the arts will eat you alive if you let it. If you know, people will keep asking and asking and asking. And if you're the person who's always willing to take on more and do extra, that's great to a certain extent. But when you get out in the field and are freelancing, you want to establish that time management and, you know, time for mental health and rest to a certain extent, balancing that with working hard. And because there is always so much to do, I always believe you don't have time to be disorganized, which is why in my classes we learn a lot about like how to structure a Google Drive and how to keep organized rehearsal reports and stuff like that.
Thank you for that. So the next question is also for you, Professor Peter Green. A lot of students are interested in going to college to further their career in visual and performing arts field. How can students make themselves more marketable to employers and get a job after graduation?
Well, I think that Valeria, that just continues from what we're just talking about. You know, they need to be good at what they do. So if that's musician, they need to be good at performing or teaching or whatever, but they also need to have the soft skills as well. Because like Caitlin said, gone are the days when the director comes in and takes over everything. People need to work together. So, you know, they need English skills, so they need to be able to write. People skills, anything else, Deb and Caitlin, that I'm not thinking of?
Well, I would say one of the things that helps them to be employable too is to get an internship or get as much experience as you can out there. Like I'm sure for Peter, and it's probably like knowing different instruments, knowing different technological interfaces for instrumentation. For Caitlin, it's also like lighting and other materials, different kinds of jobs, experimenting with different jobs. Are really big, but if you can get an internship in the experience, it's really, really helpful, because then you're starting to you build a network. And the other thing I always tell students is you tell every single person that you know what you want to do, because if you're in like our areas here in visual arts, I mean, really when we started with that pathways thing for our division, LA is like one of the biggest creative economies in the world. You are 1 degree separated from somebody who does a job that you want to do. And you're 1 degree separated from somebody who may be able to get you that job. So in the time I've been teaching here, I have seen people get amazing jobs because I'm thinking about one guy whose dad was a cop, or his uncle was a cop, and he went on to a TV show as security, and he got that kid right out of college as a first assistant camera job on, I think it was Hawaii Five-0 back like 8 or 9 years ago. I've known other people who've said to me, I don't have 1 degree of separation because I don't know producers and stuff, but it isn't that. It's because people are people. People want to help people. So like the other people I know who've gotten jobs, it's been through, I always say, you don't know your grandma might be a connection. And then somebody emailed me 2 semesters ago and said, my grandma helped me get a job in the industry. So if you try, so experience, be good at it, have your good people skills, and then build out like build out everybody you know to know that that's what you want to do. And sometimes it's amazing. Like if you're a nice person, people will be there to kind of give you a hand. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. If you do basic stuff like show up 15 minutes early and are pleasant to work with, that goes a long way. And on the internship thing, I totally agree with that. You do need to have this willingness to start at the bottom in these fields, to not expect to walk into the Geffen and be the lighting designer, It's going to start, for my field at least, with being a follow spot operator, or with moving scenery on and off stage for several years. But that's not to say that those jobs can't be extremely rewarding and pay really well when the gig industry is back, at least, a couple $100 for a day's worth of work, or for a few hours worth of work sometimes. And the more of those small gigs that you take in addition to internships, your network is going to grow and grow and grow. So I always say start a LinkedIn immediately. Learn how to make a website immediately. Always carry your business cards with you, because you could run into someone at the coffee bean down the street, and you want to make sure that you have your business card with your personal website on it. Have a really nice, clean resume. And for a visual artist, I always have my portfolio on my phone, because you never know if you're going to be sitting in an airplane seat next to someone who's really interested in you and the work that you do, and they have connections. So it's always being ready and willing to engage in those conversations, even though it can be really hard to do these like shameless self plugs, especially in person. I think we're all very comfortable with it on Facebook and stuff, but I'd say start your LinkedIn's early and get comfortable with that. Maybe even take public speaking or acting classes to feel comfortable with that, and with doing interviews, because when they call you in for a 15-minute interview, if you can just channel all that nervous energy into a good interview, it really helps go a long way too, in addition to all those other things.
Yeah, you guys are completely right. Like the whole thing about internships and the and getting work experience, it's so important, because you can learn things. Even if they don't pay you much. My first job while I was going to school down here in LA was I was teaching music at a preschool to preschool kids, right? Now that's not really what I want to do, but I learned so much. I learned how you have to be absolutely organized, and I got $10 an hour. Like I'm not going to make my living from that, but I did it because I wanted to get out there and I wanted to like learn and get some experience. So sometimes you just need to do that.
It's funny that when Caitlin, you were talking about like, you can't be too proud in the beginning. One of my professors once told me, like, he looked around the room of all the newbies and he said, I just want to let you know, in the film industry, none of you are ready to be a production assistant because you don't know where the donut shops are in Chicago. And in a weird way, it was kind of true. It was like he was getting us ready to be like, you're not going to go in and get to tell people what to do in the beginning. But here's the thing I think about like community college students, like a lot of us are flexible. We've had to be, right? Like, and especially now with pandemic and everything, I really do think that it's going to make us all a little bit more flexible about what our expectations are. If you can go in, if you can get just I say to students, like, get your foot in the door, know where all the donut shops are first, get your foot in the door, and then you jam your knee in, then you jam your shoulder in, and then you pop through to the other side. And it won't necessarily come all at one time. You might have to teach preschool for a while, like Dr. Green did, or I did even worse things. I don't even want to talk about the job. Get by. Like, there are some really bad jobs. I learned so many things about what I don't want to do. But like, I worked with people who had traumatic brain injuries. I worked in a bookstore. I did an overnight job for a while. Each one of those kind of taught me some new things about, they weren't related to the job, but they actually, helped me get where I was going. They got me the money that I could go to take the next class or whatever. And at the same time, I tried to build them into my like big resume, which was, whatever the new thing was, being organized, Dr. Green talked about. But and then when you get to the jobs that are related to your art, you're starting to network. So that's really important. Always be kind. Oh, I know the other thing that I was going to say about people who've had to be flexible or struggled a little bit in their lives. One thing I've heard over and over again from people is, people can ruin your career if you treat them badly. And I'm not talking about like, in film, it's not necessarily the big shot producers, it's the administrative assistants, because the people who are on the lower tier often get treated crummy, and they're the ones who decide sometimes who's going to be on the docket for the next show. And I know of instances where someone treated an administrative assistant or a secretary or a janitor really badly, and but the janitor's best friend happens to be a producer that they hang out with at lunch down at the bistro on site. So they say, yeah, I really think that guy's a jerk. And the producer's like, okay, I'm going to take that into consideration. So being kind and being respectful of other people is, no matter who they are, it is an important thing. We've talked about soft skills, but that's also something, respectfulness. It goes so far. And I've heard crazy stories where people who are at the bottom of a tier ended up being in charge of the person who was the producer, and because that producer who elevated them, then they were helping the person who was formerly at the top, because things change real fast too. So anyhow, my 2 cents on being cool.
I totally agree. I guarantee in 5 to 10 years, you're going to look like on LinkedIn or Facebook and go, oh my gosh, the person that I used to goof around with backstage is now running this theater company or this production company or what have you that I wanted to be a part of. And then you'll reflect back on your relationship with that person. It's happened to me, of like, this person that I kind of butted heads when we were younger. And then I moved to LA and he hooks me up with my first big job out here. And, luckily that worked out, because we both have matured and moved on with our lives. But I always think about that, like, the people are going to rise the same way you're going to rise. And so it's super important.
Thank you for all of that great advice. I, for one, am so inspired. We are unfortunately running out of time because there is another event that has to start at 6:15. So for our final question of the night, looking back on your educational career, is there anything that you would have changed? And do you have any advice for students now how to be motivated to finish and go through with their goals and their dreams? And this is for anybody, so if anybody wants to take it.
I'm always inclined to say I would change a lot of things, because for me personally, undergrad in particular was really hard. I started undergrad in 2008 and I didn't graduate until July of 2015, and it was supposed to be a 4-year program. And I ran into a lot of roadblocks on the way, and I had to learn a lot of hard lessons about finances and being self-sufficient. I worked 3 jobs to get my way through undergrad and then to support myself through grad school. In grad school, I really wish that I had utilized mental health counseling, because I didn't have to be in as much pain as I was in grad school, I don't think, because it is a really difficult experience. I don't want to discourage anyone from it, but definitely like look at the school's resources and take advantage of them. And if you're struggling, you don't have to struggle alone, whether that's financially or academically or mentally. that would probably be the biggest change that I would make, is to, you can prevent a lot of suffering if you reach out. And a lot of times that can manifest, like Deb said, in having one great professor, which is, I had that too. I had one great professor who changed my life forever. And it's arguably why I'm here, because I want to be that professor for people going forward. I think that happened to a lot of us who find ourselves teaching. So I would look at the people within your department that you find yourself in and reach out to them and hold them close, and then look at the resources your school has to offer. And it will make your life better and easier. You don't have to go it alone.
I'm not sure. I just wanted to say, like, I had a really wonky path to where I am. And I kind of feel like I hear a lot of students saying, I'm so old, I'm 28 years old and I don't really know what I want to do. And I want to say, like, you're so young. But I didn't know what I really wanted to do until I was almost 30. So, and I beat myself up, and I see other people beating themselves up. We all got a path, and take advantage of our awesome counselors who might be able to put you on a path, help you find resources earlier on. But your path is your path. And sometimes you just have to kind of like bump around a little bit to find what you want to do. So that's another reason we love community college. It's a great way to do that.
Most people change careers multiple times. That's the thing. That's part of it. Back when my dad was a factory worker, and he worked in the same factory for over 35 years. So, but life is long, right? So we have different phases, different development, and you take from each phase of your life. So it's all an amazing thing, right? Just pay attention to, again, like I said, your skills development, the challenges that you've had. Most of the faculty here and everyone here probably feels the same way, right? Creating who you are now, so you don't want to take pieces of that away, even if it was a challenge.
And if there's something that you're interested in, take a class in it. You never know what'll happen 10, 20, 30 years down the road. I didn't think that I'd be directing choir at a church, but I'm directing choir at a church. So, I'm glad that I had those skills. I wish that I had more vocal training skills that I could use.
Thank you
Just
all.
a quick,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Paul.
Ellie.
Go ahead.
Just a quick career center plug, right? Caitlin had talked about like LinkedIn, and Deb talked about networking. We do have LinkedIn workshops, networking workshops, as well as resume, cover letter, interview workshops at the career center. So I'm putting our career events on the chat if you guys are interested. And if you're interested in also seeing us one-on-one regarding your resume, cover letter, and even do mock interviews, we're always here to help you guys out. I'm really bad with doing mock interviews because I feel like you need to have like that mean neutral face. I'm always smiling, so it's like like you get the job, like sure you get the job. I don't care about your qualification, but I'll try to put my mean face on to prepare you guys. But you can definitely set up appointments with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I might take you up on that, Paulo. Sarah, yes, I wish you would do all of my interviews. That would be so wonderful. Thank you everybody for being here tonight. That is all the time we have, unfortunately. If you have any questions that we didn't answer, please email me at asvpad@glendale.edu, and we will try to get your questions answered. My email is in the chat if you need to see it. To our counselors and faculty members who are here tonight, thank you so much. The GCC community is so lucky to have you all. I really believe that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You guys are amazing. If you have not filled out the survey in the chat, this is to all of our students who are here tonight. Please do so when you leave. We want to hear your feedback about how we could make this series better. We have more workshops this week and next week, so if you're curious to know about our other learning and professional pathways, we encourage you to join us at those. So you can visit our website at associatedstudentsgcc.com or our Instagram at as.gcc. So that is it from me. I wish everybody a happy holiday season. I know those are coming up quick. Good luck on all of your finals, and we hope to see you at our other workshop sessions. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. So long.
Bye.
Thank you. Good, everybody.